That cabin over there. Yeah, the one half hidden behind the pines, right on the water. Don't even think about getting close. That's the first thing I heard when I pulled up with my old Ford, hauling everything I owned to what I thought was my retirement dream. And there she was, standing in the middle of the gravel drive, all righteous fury and freshly coiffed hair, one hand white-knuckled around her phone, the other waving me away like I was some lost delivery driver. "This is private property," she barked, and you could practically hear the capital letters in her voice. For a second, I thought about just laughing it off, but then 3 police cruisers came barreling down that little road, sirens screaming like I tried to rob a bank, and the joke wasn't so funny anymore. You know how sometimes you realize you've just stepped right into the middle of someone else's crazy power trip? That was me, standing there with a box of photo albums, listening as she pointed at me and called me an intruder to the cops. I didn't even get my name out before Officer Martinez leaned in, eyes flickering across my license, and everything changed. "Judge, is that you?" he whispered, and suddenly it was like all the air went out of Karen's sails. "Let me back up a sec. My name's Nathaniel Cole. 30 years of federal judge, mostly quiet cases, except for the time I put half the county sheriff's department in jail. This lakeside place was supposed to be my escape, a spot to write, fish, and give my granddaughter Emily a break from the mess life dumped on her after her mom passed. I'd bought it fair and square after a long legal tangle, and every signature, every document, was ironclad. But Margaret Sterling, HOA president and reigning queen of petty tyranny, had decided otherwise. Martinez, who, turns out, I once helped clear of bogus charges when he blew the whistle on his own department, read my paperwork twice, then turned to Margaret with this look, half amusement, half warning. She stammered, backpedaled, tried to recover that queenly authority, but you could tell something had shifted. She pressed her lips into a line, glared at me like I'd ruined her favorite soap opera, and stalked off toward her house, muttering threats about community standards and security funds. The other cops? Their shoulders loosened. I could breathe again. A neighbor ambled over, Tom Bradley, blue cabin, friendly handshake, eyes that said he'd seen this kind of drama before. "Hell of a welcome wagon," he joked, but I caught the note of relief in his voice. As we talked, I noticed Margaret's attention never really left us, her gaze darting between Tom and me. Later, Emily finally woke up, rubbing sleep from her eyes, blissfully unaware of the brewing storm. I wished I could keep her that way. Next morning, it started again, only worse. Emily wandered down to the lake, just wanting to skip stones, but 3 local teens surrounded her, voices dripping with the kind of nasty confidence you only get from knowing adults have your back. "You don't belong here." One shoved her. That's when Margaret swept in, all sugar-sweet concern for children's safety. Her little angels straightened up, and she wrapped an arm around Emily, squeezing just enough to make her point. "Accidents happen," she said, eyes locked on mine, daring me to challenge her. That night she showed up on our porch with a clipboard and a story about how she'd been run out by the previous HOA tyrant, how she'd clawed her way back from nothing. It was part threat, part confession, and part recruitment pitch. "Work with me, Judge, and you'll have peace. Oppose me." She left the rest unsaid, but I didn't need it spelled out. Later, while Emily slept, I dug through geological surveys of the lake, remembering Tom's offhand comment about the water's weird color. Rare earth elements, big money, more than enough to motivate someone like Margaret. Then, through binoculars, I caught Margaret meeting with a slick-suited man in a black SUV, a thick envelope changing hands. Something big was going on. The next morning, Margaret fired her first official shot, an HOA violation notice for Emily's bike, a $500 fine, complete with a surveillance photo. Instead of yelling, I responded lawyer style, citing privacy laws and requesting all HOA records by state statute. When I handed Margaret those papers, her mask slipped, just for a second, but I saw fear underneath. "This isn't a courtroom," she hissed. I smiled and reminded her that Colorado's law didn't much care about her title. That night, someone slashed my tires and left a note. "Last warning. Think about your granddaughter." Emily found it first. Seeing her cry, her knuckles white around that paper, flipped a switch inside me. Enough was enough. I promised her we'd stand our ground, but now this was war. At the next HOA meeting, Margaret tried to ram through a security fee, $8,000 per household. 30 days to pay. I stood up and cross-examined her right there, asking for the statute that allowed it. Silence. The room began to shift, residents looking at each other, realizing maybe Margaret wasn't all-powerful after all. That's when Sarah Whitmore, real estate attorney, slipped me a note. She'd been collecting dirt on Margaret for 2 years. Embezzlement, shell companies, burglary, threats. The evidence was explosive. In the parking lot, 6 families approached, each with their own horror story. Fines for tulips, cars parked at the wrong angle, constant harassment. Over coffee, Sarah handed me a USB drive with the proof. $200,000 siphoned out, fake maintenance bills, plans with a developer to force everyone out. Margaret's web was deeper than anyone guessed. A few days later, someone broke into my garage and left a bag of marijuana for the cops to find. Right on cue, 3 squad cars and Margaret watching from her porch. But I'd set up security cameras after the tire slashing. I handed Martinez my phone. Clear video of 2 men planting the evidence. The look on Margaret's face when Martinez called it criminal conspiracy was priceless. Emily, for her part, had been running her own little investigation, following Margaret to a meeting with the same developer. Emily caught it all on video. Margaret talking deadlines, cash envelopes, and, most tellingly, a business card dropped and snapped up by Emily's phone camera. Turns out, the developer was Daniel Sterling, Margaret's son-in-law. The whole thing was a family scam, backed by a mining company with a track record of buying out and strip mining communities just like ours. That evening, Tom Bradley knocked on my door, guilt written all over his face. He confessed, years ago, he'd surveyed the lake for rare earth minerals, hundreds of millions of dollars in value. If you knew what you were looking for. Margaret found out, and the campaign to drive out homeowners began in earnest. The final showdown came at a packed emergency HOA meeting. Margaret tried to smear me, paint herself as a misunderstood protector. But Sarah stood up with her evidence, and then Daniel stormed in, turning on his mother-in-law to save himself. She demanded 60% of the mining profits. She wanted everyone evicted. The room exploded. Residents called for her removal, for criminal prosecution, their anger overwhelming. That's when I dropped the final bomb. Emails from the state confirming any secret mining deals were illegal, and, oh yeah, I'd already contacted the FBI about a multi-state conspiracy. Like clockwork, 3 federal agents walked in and arrested Margaret for fraud and racketeering. You should have seen the look on her face as the handcuffs snapped shut. After that, everything changed. Margaret got 8 years in federal prison. Daniel turned on Blackstone Mining for a reduced sentence. The company was fined into oblivion. And our community, well, let's just say those rare earth minerals are now paying for scholarships, new roofs, and a whole lot of therapy bills. We replaced the HOA with a rotating council, put Sarah in charge, and made transparency the new law of the land. Emily's become a little legend herself, sharing our story online and helping others fight back against bullies. And on quiet evenings, watching the sun turn the lake gold, I still hear her ask, "Do you think we really changed anything?" I tell her the truth. One fight at a time is how the world gets better. That, and refusing to let the Margarets of the world win. So, now it's your turn. Where do you draw the line between community and control? Ever tangled with a bully who thought they owned the neighborhood? Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear where you stand on justice, community, and what it really means to fight for home.